How do I know if I'm in an abusive relationship? The initial answer that I give is if you're asking the question, you probably are. A little bit more of a deep dive answer to that question. If anyone is out to make you feel uncomfortable, if someone is purposefully trying to make you live in fear of them, or is tearing down your sense of self-worth, tearing down your sense of safety, even your safety within yourself, that's abusive. I want to give a more thorough, deep dive answer to this question. And so we are going to be using an article from UN.org entitled, "What is Domestic Abuse?" According to the UN.org article, domestic abuse can be defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. This right here is so important, what I'm about to share, okay? This right here, watch. Abuse is physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological actions or threats of actions that influence another person. This includes any behaviors that frighten, intimidate, terrorize, manipulate, hurt, humiliate, blame, injure, or wound someone. Abuse does not have to be physical for it to be defined as abuse. Just because someone doesn't put their hands on you does not mean that they are not abusive. Anyone can be a victim of domestic violence regardless of age, race, gender, sexual orientation, faith, or class. Incidents are rarely isolated and usually escalate in frequency and severity. Domestic abuse may culminate in serious physical injury or death. We believe that if it's an isolated incident, then it's not abusive and we shouldn't worry and we should believe them when they say they're gonna get better. However, abuse escalates. Even if it's once every couple of months, that is you living in fear between episodes. That is abuse. So this next part of the article I really like because it's wanting you to ask yourself some of these questions. The header of this section is, are you being abused? Does your partner embarrass or make fun of you in front of your friends and family? Put down your accomplishments? Make you feel like you are unable to make decisions? Now these three right here are all forms of gaslighting. The reason that this is so important is because what the abuser is going to do is tear you down piece by piece, little by little. When they do this, this makes you question your sense of self and it makes you question your sense of self-worth. And if you don't believe that you have a right to speak up, that you have a right to be proud, that anything you've done is worth being proud of, you're going to believe this person when they say they're doing you a favor by sticking around. This was a tactic that was used on me and I used to fall for it hook, line, and sinker because my self-worth and my self-confidence was so friggin' low that I believed people when they said that they were doing me a favor. And that led to a lot of abusive behaviors that I tolerated and abusive incidents that I tolerated because I believed truly that I deserved them. Does your partner use intimidation or threats to gain compliance? Do they tell you that you are nothing without them? Do they treat you roughly, grabbing, pushing, pinching, shoving, or hitting you? Do they call you several times a night or show up to make sure you are where you said you would be? As you can tell, like they kind of escalate, right? As the questions go. That's because as you begin to ask these questions, our brains will open up to see things that we may not have seen before. Something that comes up a lot is this sense of possessiveness. And unfortunately, possessiveness is romanticized and glamorized in media. And it's something that I once thought it made a healthy relationship. I once thought that if the person I was with was possessive and jealous all the time, it meant that they cared about me and they worried about me and they wanted to make sure that I was safe and that I was with them. Little did I know it was actually completely unsafe and stalkery. Possessiveness is not a sign of love. That's a sign of mistrust, not in them, but in you. It's them constantly causing you to question your actions that made you wonder what caused them to lose that trust in you. All of these little psychological things add up and happen usually before the first physical incident occurs. This is because once you're broken down, you begin to believe that you deserve what's happening. Do they use drugs or alcohol as an excuse for saying hurtful things or abusing you? I'm gonna take this one step farther. Do they use drugs, alcohol, or their own mental health as an excuse for saying hurtful things or abusing you? Now look, I get it. As someone with mental illness, I understand that it's a struggle. But here is the difference. I have hurt people in the past due to my poor mental health, but I also was not taking care of myself and I had no desire to change. That is not a mental health problem. That is a personal responsibility problem. Someone's mental health, someone's trauma, what they've gone through is never an excuse to abuse you. Now, this one is really hard because I had to take personal accountability for the fact that I most definitely had abusive behavior when I was in my deepest, darkest pit. Now, am I saying that I didn't deserve love and I didn't deserve someone to call me out? Absolutely not. But it also isn't anyone else's job to be my personal punching bag. If someone is using their mental health as an excuse to hurt you, especially if they refuse to get help or heal, that is not the mental health's fault. That is that person refusing to take personal accountability, and you have every right to walk away. And you should never feel obligated to stay due to their lack of personal responsibility. Or heck, even if they are actively choosing to heal, you do not have to stay and be their personal punching bag. If they want to come back in the future after they have healed, after they've had some therapy, maybe you guys can come back together. But it is not your job to stick around and wait for someone to stop treating you like garbage. Do they blame you for how they feel or act? Do they pressure you sexually for things you aren't ready for? Do they make you feel like there is no way out of the relationship? Do they prevent you from doing the things that you want to do, like spending time with friends or family? Do they try to keep you from leaving after a fight or leave you somewhere after a fight to teach you a lesson? I definitely relate to this and I understand what it can feel like. Sometimes fights happen, but fights should never lead to someone abandoning you, and they certainly should never lead to abuse. You can have a disagreement. When you bring two humans together into a relationship, disagreements are gonna happen because you're both individuals. However, what makes a difference between a healthy disagreement and an abusive one is when someone uses that disagreement as an excuse to hurt you. That is abuse. Those are questions about your partner. Now, the next questions in this article are questions about you. Take a deep breath and let's dive in. Do you sometimes feel scared of how your partner may behave? Do you constantly make excuses to other people for your partner's behavior? Do you believe that you can help your partner change if only you changed something about yourself? Do you try not to do anything that would cause conflict or make your partner angry? Do you always do what your partner wants to do instead of what you want? Do you stay with your partner because you are afraid of what your partner would do if you broke up? This last one really hit home for me because in a majority of the abusive relationships that I was in, I stayed for this very reason. Anytime I mentioned leaving or anytime we got in a fight or anytime I stood up for myself, they always threatened to not be alive anymore. This is a problem, especially for those of us who know what it's like to go through those thoughts. We don't want anyone else to feel that way, even if they are abusing us. But let me make something abundantly clear. If something is harming your health, you are not obligated to stay with someone or prevent someone from harming themselves. And I know that that is incredibly hard to hear. As someone who has had multiple attempts and the only reason that I'm still here is because someone walked in the room at the right time, I understand that it's incredibly difficult to accept that. Heck, it's hard for me to say that. I am huge on choosing life and choosing to live and choosing to keep going even when things get dark. But that also applies to you. You are not obligated to protect anyone, especially when they are harming you. Any actions that they take are not your fault. They are the choices that they have made in their own issues. That's so much easier said than done. Because what if something does happen? What if they did do something? And then that's on my conscience for the rest of my life. It's not your job. And the best thing that you can do is to take the threat and report it to the authorities and block as much as you possibly can. Block anywhere and everywhere. Choose you. Choose healing. You do not need to put up with that. And in fact, you most definitely shouldn't. If any of what I mentioned today resonated with you, I want you to know that you are not alone and you most certainly deserve so much better. If you are in immediate danger, please get out. Saying DV shelter is so much easier said than done, I understand. But reach out to a friend, reach out to family, reach out to someone who's going to help you. Even if you are isolated and in a place where you don't know anyone, reach out and get help where you can. Right here, linked to a playlist where I walk you through where to start. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and never forget that you are strong You are capable, you are intelligent, and boo, you are so freaking worthy.